Welcome to the No Mom is an Island podcast. As moms, we often long for moments of being alone, but the truth is sometimes we feel downright lonely. The intention of this podcast is to show you that you aren't alone, that we all experience similar things along this mothering journey. If you enjoy this podcast, please check the episode description for some easy ways that you can help this podcast continue. Well, multitasking masters, whatever you are doing while you listen to this podcast, we help you enjoy hearing the story of another mom. Today, we welcome Heather. Hello, Heather. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for letting me interview you. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate it.
Good. All right. Well, why don't you tell us about your family then?
Okay. Well, Nathan, my husband, is a pastor, and we have 5 kids. Isaiah is 9, Mariah is 8, Ezekiel is 6, Uriah, who we call Yuri, is 4, and Elijah is 3.
All right.
And we homeschool
Okay.
our 5 kids.
All right. So then why don't you tell us your perspective on mothering?
Okay. Well, I decided to term it fearless parenting because when I think of just kind of the parent that I want to be, I think I just want to be fearless. I just want to go into situations with my kids and just totally give them over to the Lord. And when Isaiah first came, I was totally controlled by fear. Fear of toxins, fear of bad influences, fear of raising bad kids, fear of tantrums, fear of homeschooling. I mean, you name it, I was afraid of it. And honestly, it was a few years of just really intense fear. And then finally, I just asked God to give me a promise for each of my kids, just to silence those fears. And so he gave me lots of different verses, but the one that stays with me on a daily basis is Isaiah 54:13, which says, I will teach all your children, and great will be their peace. So anyway, since then, God has been helping me face my fears and just trust him with my kids' lives and trust him to be with them in the darkest places and just wherever he chooses to call them.
Yeah, that's good. It's so easy to let fears paralyze us and stop us from doing things. And then we look back and we're like, but I didn't do anything. and it's like, well, I missed that opportunity because I was so afraid of it going poorly. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And, fear is often the opposite of life and love. And, so when we operate in fear, then we're, negating or abandoning those life and love principles and missing out on the joys that there are.
That's right. Yeah, I think of that verse, perfect love casts out all fear.
Right.
And, just the closer we get to the Lord and the closer we know his love, then we realize we have absolutely nothing to fear, no matter what comes against us.
Right.
So that was just the most soothing verse in reality.
Right.
In the midst of that fear.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, then what about your parenting philosophy?
Well, I guess my philosophy basically goes along with my perspective. So if I'm a fearless parent and I believe that God will call my children to be a light in the darkest places on earth, then I'm going to do everything I can to disciple them and train them to be light and to be sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit. And our family, we actually have this cheesy family motto that we say, and it's actually from John Wesley's writing called "The Character of a Methodist." But we've changed it just to fit our family, and it says, "We love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. In everything we give thanks. Our hearts are lifted to God at all times. We love every man as much as our own soul. We are pure in heart. God reigns alone in our lives. We keep all the commandments. We do all to the glory of God. We adorn the doctrine of God in all things." So we're a work in progress, and we fall down a lot. But the goal is to be like Jesus, and we know we have the Holy Spirit to help us.
Right.
So that's the goal. So, which kind of, I guess, shapes, that's the philosophy that shapes, at least I hope it does, shapes what I do as a parent.
Right. And when it's not shaping it, it helps you to realize you're off course and redirect and refocus. And I think that's one of the benefits of even just thinking through what is my perspective and what is my philosophy as a parent, because it's like, all right, now
that's quite a challenge for me.
Yeah. But then when you force yourself the discipline of thinking through that, it also brings it to the forefront of your mind and allows you to analyze, like, in this moment of stress, am I functioning under this philosophy that I want to claim to be under, or, am I slipping away from that? And, whenever we slip away from that, we're not living to our life to its fullest, and, can help you redirect and point you back to, what does it look like to live to the glory of God, recognizing that He does everything for our good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And they're really, it's big words, but as we talk through each thing with the kids, it's really not, with the Holy Spirit, it's really not impossible for us, not perfectly, but just to kind of remind us, okay, wait, are we giving thanks in everything, or are we complaining in everything?
Right.
So it's a good reminder.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
All right. What has been your favorite thing to teach your children or watch them learn? And I'm sure also homeschooling, there can be so many options to this question for you. And feel free also to differentiate between your various children too. It doesn't have to be just all one thing, or it could be a category depending on the way you view that.
Okay. This was a hard question just because there are so many things. Like I thought of, teaching them to ride their bike and, which I don't love it, but I love the outcome.
Right.
So, but I think honestly, with homeschooling, just having the joy of being able to be there when my kids start reading and just being, although they don't realize that I've actually taught them how to read, they think they just, totally come by it on their own. But,
of course.
Yes, exactly. It's honestly been one of the most grueling processes for me, just because I've had to sit back and just kind of watch give them the tools and then just kind of wait for it to happen.
Right.
So, but then it is true that they've all been so different. And only my three oldest are reading right now, but they all read at different ages and just, they were so different, but just, it taught me a whole new level of patience.
Right.
So, which I really needed.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on.
I think we all are regularly. Just a reminder, sometimes when I've been so impatient, I feel extra, I don't know that I want to call it extra levels of guilt, because that kind of has like a negative connotation, but I feel badly that I've been impatient with my children, and then also badly because I know God is so patient with me, and I'm like, oh my word, like what is wrong with me that I'm shown so much patience and yet have such a hard time showing patience. I'm like, this is what I teach not only my children but the children at church all the time, that God shows us this, so then we show this to other people, whatever the character quality is, and I'm like, and I'm failing badly.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Oh, yes.
All right. What then has been your least favorite thing to teach your children or watch them learn?
Oh, well, I would just have to say obedience, because just teaching them to be obedient and being held accountable to making sure that I follow through on the consequences that I've just told them, this is going to happen if you do this, and then I have to actually follow through on it.
So inconvenient. I'm always like, just comply.
I know. Well, last Saturday we were headed to go swimming with our cousins, and my third child right now, Zeke is he's the sweetest little boy. He is just going through a really tough complaining streak right now, and where he literally complains about everything. And we just keep trying to refocus him on what he needs to be thinking about and saying, every day. But anyway, so we're headed to the pool, and he's complaining about going to the pool because he wasn't allowed to ride with his cousins, but his sister was. And I said, Zeke, if you complain again about this, then I'm going to have to leave you at home with Daddy. And sure enough, he said something that was just so blatant, and so I just had to stop the car. I turned around, and of course he's wailing, and I'm immediately thinking, okay, how can I get out of this?
No.
Oh my goodness. I think if my husband hadn't been there to say, no, this is good for him to be left with me, I think I would have said, well, I'll give you another chance.
Yeah.
But even since then, my kids, all the older ones have been reminding him, Zeke, don't complain. Remember what happened.
You're going to get left home.
Exactly.
That's so heart-wrenching. And you're like, I really thought the threat of it would be good enough, and it wasn't. Why? It's like, I didn't want to take this away from you for real.
I know, exactly.
I know. Yeah, they're so
painful.
Yeah, they're painful moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much.
All right. What has been a high moment for you in parenting, especially with 5 children who are relatively close together? There are moments of such chaos, but then you have these moments where you're like, I can do this. So what came to mind when you were thinking about like a high moment in your parenting experience?
Yeah. I have to say, just those moments when my kids show selflessness and putting others first.
Yes.
I mean, I think, oh, good, I'm not totally messing them up.
Yes.
So, a moment recently when my daughter showed us that was when we had applied to have a foreign exchange student come. And we've since then been accepted, and she's coming in August. But it was kind of up in the air because our basement it didn't have 2 exits. So, so we got turned down, and my daughter just immediately when she heard that said, I'll give up my room, and Hala can stay in my room, and I'll sleep in the basement. Oh. And she's a little girl that she does not like to be by herself. Okay. And but she didn't even hesitate.
Oh, that's so
that
sweet.
Just really, of course, I started to cry. Yes. Oh, honey. So it just those moments where I realized that the reality is it's God, but I'm just so grateful that in those moments he just lets me be a part of it, and I think, oh, good. Yes. Maybe they're hearing God more than they're hearing me.
Right. So. Right. Oh. All right. And what about the other side, a low moment where you're like, if you could have the humorous perspective for a moment, even in the midst of it, or retrospect, where you were like, oh my word, my kids are going to need counseling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course, I feel like there's a lot of those.
Yes.
I can remind myself of a lot of those times, but I think, both like scary and just like traumatic moment though was Zeke and Yuri were 1 and 2, and I was pregnant with Elijah. And I thought the boys were with Nate in the garage, and of course he thought they were with me. And I came in to turn on Netflix for my 2 older kids, and I just had this urgent feeling, which I know now was the Holy Spirit, to just go check on the little boys. And I look out the window, and both of them had made it down to the busy street.
Oh my!
And and we have 4 lanes of traffic. We're right across the street from a high school. And so, it was like rush hour for us. Because, all 4 lanes of traffic were filled. And he's crawling out into the street. And I'm just racing down there, screaming my head off. And, by the grace of God, all 4 lanes had stopped. And I was able to, snatch him up. But oh my goodness, such a miracle, but the worst parenting moment ever.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So we talk about that and just how God saves them.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah.
Moments when you're convinced and so thankful for guardian angels and God's protection on our children.
Oh yeah.
All right. So
that's right.
What has been a significant parenting or mothering influence for you?
Well, first I would definitely have to say my mom.
Okay.
She's just, she's always been an encouragement to me, and she loves me and speaks the truth to me when I'm reacting in fear. And she raised 4 Jesus-loving kids who were serving around the United States. And she would always say to all of us, we're raising you to send you. And that's always just kind of stuck with me.
Right.
That that's kind of our role, really, as moms, to raise our kids, to send them, out to the world to be light. And the other one would be Matt and Mary Friedemann, and they raised I would say 6 world changers for Jesus. Just really 6 wonderful kids. And Matt was my husband's professor in seminary, and Matt and Mary wrote a book called Discipleship in the Home. And it's a wonderful book, and I reference it all the time. So, and I had the chance back in January to sit down with Mary and just pick her brain, and just walked away feeling so encouraged. I think just to see people that are farther along the journey who have raised God-fearing kids, and they've made it through the trials, and they've stood firm, and it's just so encouraging.
Yes, definitely.
So,
Yeah, that question is a new question in the podcast, and it's been something I've been interested to start hearing what people's responses are. Just, we all have things that influence us in one way or another. And, that question can also be an influence in a negative sense, too. If someone, an experience in your life resulted in you saying, I don't want to do it that way, it could also go that direction. But, we've all been influenced by experiences in our lives in all areas. And so I'm curious to hear how people view that as far as people who impacted their choices and ways that they wanted to parent. So that's really neat. And I really like the focus of, remembering that our children are ours to, to train up and to send out. And that, because sometimes, as moms, we do so many of the little day-to-day things for our children all through the years that it can be easy to be consumed with caring for them and forget that, like, the goal ultimately is so that I don't have to do those day-to-day things for them forever. And that, I've often phrased it, my goal is to raise competent and God-loving adults, that they're capable of functioning on their own. And you can't start that at 18, like the day before they're supposed to be walking out of the house. It really needs to be an incremental process. But just the focus that, like, they are, not mine forever. They're, they need to be with the goal of going out there and living for Jesus wherever he places them.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's really good.
All right. So tell me, what do you do amidst 5 children actively involved in your church and homeschooling? What do you do to take care of yourself?
Yeah, this is definitely something that's kind of morphed over the years. As I've realized kind of what I need and to be that, fully functioning mom. But one thing I know just about myself is I just need to have time to read. I need to have time to read the Word. I need to have time to read, great stories of, people who are changing the world. And so, like, when my kids were young, I bought a waterproof Bible, and I put it on the back of, my toilet, and every time I would go to use the bathroom, I would read a few verses. And so, which is funny, but it was like literally my survival. Back when I was also babysitting a lot when my kids were little, when I was nursing and pregnant, and so that was my survival with that. And then something that's always been that I've always put as a priority as well is just time with friends. I'm such a social person, and time with good friends really rejuvenates me. And so when when Isaiah, our first one, was very young, I started a mom's Bible study, and I asked our church to pay a babysitter just to bless the mom. And so we started off every 2 weeks, and that was like light at the end of the tunnel for me. So, especially because I had, so many so close together. And so in those dark moments, where I'm home by myself and suffering from postpartum and all that, I had that, just that Friday in view that I was going to get to talk to people and be real. And so, and actually now it's 10 years later, and we're still going strong. We meet every week.
That's wonderful.
Of course, the group has changed, over the years, and even over the months, people come and go. But we'll either study a book of the Bible, or we'll study a parenting book. And, some weeks we just get together and cry and just share our weekly stories, our weekly mom guilt, so, and just have a wonderful prayer time over each other. And so anyway, so that's been huge so reading and time with friends and of course time with my husband
right.
Has just been so vital. And we don't have too many kids in our church that are able to babysit just because of their school schedules and everything.
Right.
So what we've started doing is just picking a night and putting the kids to bed early that night, as early as possible.
Right.
And then we'll either just sit and talk, or we'll rent a movie, and it's just another something to look forward to.
Right.
But,
in-house dates is what we always called them.
Yes,
when our kids were little,
yes,
we did the same thing.
So,
and sometimes it was sporting events that we liked watching, or, Netflix or movies or something like that. And it was just like, it was time that we set aside that we weren't going to do other things. We were just going to sit and do whatever that was together, and didn't cost anything, and yet was so valuable and needed, because otherwise, you barely cross paths sometimes, and it gets old really quickly.
Yeah. And I always thought that as my kids got older, it would be easier to find time for myself. And but I'm finding that I just have to be more intentional, because I can make those, have that time. I can get up much earlier and read, but I have to choose that and not go and do the dishes,
right.
or start breakfast or whatever. I just have to take that time. So now that I know, those are the things. And now, too, I find time to exercise, and I'll meet a friend up at the track, and we'll bring our kids and let them run around, and we'll walk on the track, or, but those are the things, that I know that I need. And if I don't have them over a long period of time, then I just start to get worn out.
Yes.
So.
And I think that's important to recognize about self-care too, is that it by necessity needs to be changeable. Like that something that you do at one season may not be what you do forever, and that it's okay to interrupt the routine that you've figured out, and just try to figure out a new thing that could be working for this season. And I think that's so vital that we are analyzing it intentionally on a regular basis. Is this still doing what it is intended to do? Or, because sometimes things that we've chosen to do can after time become a drain instead of the self-care that they were intended for. And so sometimes we need to be like, okay, that thing needs to go, and I need to replace it with something else because it's no longer soothing to my heart. And so, that self-care thing it's so important for us to be intentional about it on all levels.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I find if I just start getting more snappy and I start yelling at the kids, if I step back, then I realize, okay, something is missing.
Right.
I'm not having enough time with the Lord, or I'm not just resting and just hearing from Him, or whatever it is. I'm not getting enough exercise, and the winter blues are getting to me. I don't know, but I think just being in tune, I guess allowing ourselves to be in tune with our bodies, and it's okay to have those feelings, but we can do something about it as well.
Right. Those feelings need to be the trigger that causes us to be proactive and figure out what it is that we need to, what's missing.
Yes.
All right. What do you consider your favorite life hack? Something that makes your life faster or easier or cheaper?
Okay. I actually called my mom on this question because I thought, what is my life hack? I'm a systems person. I love to have different systems in place, and it's just like totally my personality. So I was trying to think. Of course, I've gotten every idea from Pinterest.
Yes.
If I have a problem, an organization problem, I go and check Pinterest, because I'm sure someone, some mom somewhere has blogged about it.
Of course.
But probably my most recent, I've never really gotten into the crock pot, and I love my crock pot now.
Okay.
And I just again, going to Pinterest and finding recipes, and you can download 30 crock pot recipes, and the shopping list is already there. And so some friends and I are getting together and making the meals together so that we have some camaraderie. And so that's been something that's definitely helped me, because I love to cook, but it's kind of, it always seems to get pushed to the bottom.
Right.
So my planning in that area is not always the best.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the other thing recently that I've been doing is I have just bought lots and lots of hooks. so like in the bathroom we have 5 hooks for our kids,
mm-hmm.
so that they all have their place for the towel, and they all have a place for their washcloth in the bathtub, and we have a place for their reading charts in the laundry room. And it sounds so simple, but it's really just helped me to say,
mm-hmm.
okay, obviously, like, we're not going to wash towels every single day.
Right.
You're going to hang them back up on the hook, and just kind of, looking for those, which times am I most stressed?
Mm-hmm.
Bath time. Okay, well, how can we make that easier?
Right. All right. Before we move on, do you have a favorite
mm-hmm.
crock pot recipe that you've recently done for your family?
Oh, well, this winter I did a lot of soups.
Okay.
And there was a loaded baked potato soup.
Okay.
That was just to die for. So I took it everywhere. Any place we'd be invited, I'd take it, and I just loved it.
Mm.
So yeah, I think at least this winter. I don't have a summer. We haven't really hit summer yet here.
Okay.
But maybe today.
Yeah.
Maybe today is the start of summer.
Right.
But so I don't have any favorite summer crock pot meals yet.
All right. What would you give as a word of encouragement to other moms, or a piece of advice to help that weary mom out there?
Oh, okay. I have a quote that hangs in my kitchen by C.S. Lewis, and it says, "Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work." And so I would just say, Mom, you're doing the most important work.
Right. Even
when you feel like you're messing up at every turn, you're the person God has handpicked to raise your kids.
Right.
And really, with His help, you won't mess them up. You won't damage them.
Right.
Too imperishable,
right.
Irreparable. So we can just trust that we are doing the most important work right now.
Right. And our culture doesn't always back us in that. So it's so important for us to remind ourselves that those words from God, that is such an important work.
Yes.
And, again, love covers a multitude of sins, so
yes.
We are so worried about all of the mistakes that we are making, and yet the love that God shows us and our children, and then the love that we show our children, covers so much of the mistakes that we make over the years.
Yes. Oh, I know. Praise the Lord for that.
Yes, I know. Because it's so easy to focus on the things that we've done wrong and, guilt ourselves for our shortcomings. And,
right.
All that really does is, limit the good that's happening. It's not really accomplishing anything else.
Right. Yeah, but that's true.
Well, thank you very much for letting me interview you. It was so fun to hear about your family and your ideas on mothering, and I just really appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Andrea.
All right.
This was a blessing.
Good. Well, you have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the No Mom is an Island podcast. We hope that it was an encouragement to you wherever you are in your mothering journey. If you would like to share your story or would like to see something added to our interviews, please contact us at nomomisanisland@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. Also, if you have enjoyed listening to the stories of other moms, there are 3 ways you can help. You can share the episodes with family and friends on Facebook. You can leave a rating and review for the podcast to help boost the podcast's visibility. And you can consider contributing to the monthly expenses of hosting this podcast by going to the crowdfunding link in the episode description. If you are looking for things to read, please also check the episode description for some of my recommendations and for the books that Heather mentioned in today's podcast. Thank you.